final set of races has in store for us, and this one in particular should be really, really exciting. It is the Welsh Sports and Saloon Car Championship. An awful lot of variety on this grid. And it's a nice change, actually. A lot of sort of one-make racing so far this weekend, and the mixed sort of class format that we have in the Welsh Sports and Saloons is something that will definitely give us a little bit of a different spectacle, that is for sure. So the cars then lying up on the grid, it's the Ford Sierra Cosworth of Jason Davis that's got the pole position. Alongside him, we've got Chris Everall in the Ginetta G55, although someone was telling me yesterday that does not have the usual V6 engine, but a V8 instead, so that's going to be producing an awful lot of power. Then we have got on the second row of the grid, Damien Longatano, who is in the Westfield. He's got a Ginetta G40 alongside of Gareth John. The third row is shared by Derry Davis in the Darien and Tom D in his Honda Integra. And then on the fourth row of the grid, Richard Jessop's Mini and David Jones in the Ford Focus. Already great variety there just across the top 8 on the grid. Then it's a Renault Clio of Colin Dunn ahead of another Westfield, this one of Lynn Morgan. Then we get into some of these sort of hot hatches. You've got Todd Garner and Mark Williams, Renault Clio and Peugeot 205 respectively. They're sharing the 6th row of the grid. Rodney Teague's Renault Clio is on row 7. And then Andrew Williams in an MG ZR, which actually runs in the same class as the Renault Clio. We'll get into those classes in a moment or two. Then on the 8th row, Alan Smith in the Ford Ka and the MGB GT V8. 2 more different cars you couldn't hope to find, sharing the 8th row of the grid. Then the BMW 330 Club Sport of Mike Cook is on row number 9, alongside Andrew Barron in another one of the Ford KAs, and Neil Thomas in another MGB. So a 19-car grid then, and 15 minutes of racing ahead of us. Now, in the championships, it is Derry Davis who leads overall. Now, the cars are split into different classes. They score points within their classes, but then they're all amalgamated to create the overall championship standings. So, for example, Derry Davis in the Darien, which is a Class D car, you can see it there, the green number 5 machine coming towards us. That is the championship leader, but joint championship leader with a Class BS car, Gareth John in the Ginetta G40, that actually starts 1 position ahead of Derry on the grid. So those 2 are joint first, basically, in the championship. But running within different classes. So depending on how well they get on within their class today, that will sort of decide which of them has the championship lead going into the second race a little bit fascinating later. Battle then, 2 by 2 out of the final corner. Some of them are a bit more on their toes than others, but the race is going to get underway then. Down towards Redgate they go, and it is the Ginetta of Chris Everall that will actually sweep across from the outside of row 1, second on the grid, to take the lead into the first corner. The Westfield of Damien Longatano slots into third, and there in the midfield, everyone definitely just trying to avoid any big risks through the first corner. The Clio there and the Peugeot together. 2 hot hatches are very decide. And there is your championship leader, the Darien, the green Darien of Derry Davis, chasing down Gareth John. Those 2 tied for the championship lead then. But it's all about, like I said, where they finish within their class. And actually, that is where Gareth John is at a slight advantage, because Gareth was on pole position within his class in the Ginetta G40, running Class BS, whereas Derry Davis second in Class D, because Class D has been bolstered this weekend by the arrival of that car that leads the race. The Ginetta G55 also runs in Class D, so therefore will potentially take points away from Derry Davis. So right now, Derry is running second in class, whereas Gareth John is leading the class, so Gareth would take the points lead, but we're only on the first lap of the race, and you can see just how close it is at the front of the field. That Sierra, so much power, but it's quite difficult to get it down on the ground out of the Melbourne Hare, close enough to attack. So the leaders go through then. The Sierra ahead of the Ginetta. The Westfield of Longatano is in third. Now, what's going on between the championship leaders? The Darien is ahead now of the Ginetta. So Derry Davis is ahead of Gareth John. And it makes no difference for the points because they run in different classes, but that will still be a nice feeling for Derry. Even if he's running second in his class, he can still at least say that he's ahead of Gareth in that Ginetta G40. Nice to see more and more of these Ginetta G40s appearing outside of one-make Ginetta competition as well. As popular as those Ginetta Championships are, the cars, when they're sort of retired from use, can still have a racing life elsewhere, and that G40 is pretty competitive, even against some significantly more powerful machinery. So they head through the old hairpin then. 6th place, incidentally, is the second of the Westfields now, so that's Lynn Morgan from 10th on the grid. Lynn Morgan getting another place that time at the expense of number 42, Tom D, in the Honda Integra. Noisy Darien powers its way up through McLean's and towards the right-hander at Coppice Corner. You can see the way the Ginetta closes in through the corners, but then the Darien very much has the edge down the straight. So as frustrating as this is for Gareth John, he must remember he doesn't need to be racing against Derry as far as the championship's concerned, but, you know, drivers out there will all want to try and have a race, and they'll want to try and finish as high up the overall order as they possibly can. They disappear down the straight, the leaders come out of the hairpin, and the Ford Sierra starting to get away now. You can see of Jason Davis, but that car is, I would imagine, maybe going to be a little bit harder on its tyres. So are we maybe going to see the Ginetta come back at him through the second part of the race? We're 9 minutes and 40 seconds away from the end of the race, and the Ginetta still staying within touching distance just about of the Sierra at the front of the field. There is the MGB of Neil Thomas. Now that is, as far as I can tell, a pretty much standard MGB. It is a long way off the pace. So the leaders have gone across the line again. A new fastest lap for the race leader Jason Davis, a 1 minute 39.040. 4.5 seconds is the distance between the top two. Then another 14 seconds back to Longatano in third, Davis in fourth, John in fifth in the Ginetta. 3 seconds now separating the two championship rivals. You've got Morgan in the Westfield, D in the Honda Integra, and everybody else just filing through now. 2 laps to go then in this Welsh Sports and Saloon Car Championship race, and still a couple of battles then to be played out here in the midfield. So final lap about to begin then for Jason Davis, who didn't lead every lap from pole position, but once he did get the lead, has never looked back. That Sierra Cosworth Turbo has been in dominant form. Got to negotiate a couple of back markers. That's another lap that he's putting on the Ford KA of Alan Smith, and then he's got the Mini just up the road of Richard Jessup. The lap time for the Westfield, by the way, was terrible. A 1 minute 56.0. I think Morgan is going to lose 6th place on the last lap. There is obviously a problem for the number 78 car. There's almost a problem there for the race leader, as he caught Richard Jessup, just as Jessup caught Neil Thomas's MGB, right through the middle of the crane of curves, where you don't want to be having to deviate from your racing line. A few people have deviated there. Oh, that's the Integra. That was the Integra. That was Tom D off. So Tom D has gone off from 8th position. He was also set to benefit from the ailing Lynn Morgan Westfield, but D has gone off at the old hairpin. I wondered what all that dirt was on the road, and that is why. So another slightly scary moment then for Jason Davis to negotiate, as he comes now up out of the right-hander at Coppice Corner, less than half a lap to go. Are we going to see any more changes behind though? I'm fairly certain that we're going to have Garner getting ahead of Morgan. I reckon Jones was probably close enough to do so as well. Let's hope he wasn't involved in whatever happened there to Tom D, because they were battling for position at the start of the lap as well. But none of this really is of much relevance to Jason Davis, because he comes down through the Melbourne hairpin then, set to complete this 15-minute race to start off the afternoon's action here after a good early battle with Chris Everall. He's never looked back really, and the race victory is going to be his. Jason Davis, a bit of a lock-up maybe there as he comes into the final hairpin at Goddard's, makes his way across the start-finish line then and sees the checkered flag. The Ford Sierra is victorious here in the first of our Welsh Sports and Saloon races at Donington Park. Second place will go to Chris Everall. Chris Everall 6th in the championship as well coming into this weekend, and within touching distance of 3rd, so a couple more class wins like that would go down very well indeed. Everall wins in Class D. Longatano eventually will come home in 3rd place, but he's going to be a long, long way back in that 3rd position. So there is the KA. Here comes the Westfield in 3rd. It's the other Westfield that I'm interested to see though. Did it hang on to that position? Well, Garner had already gone past Morgan actually at the start of the lap. Interestingly, the previous lap for Jones was quite a slow one, so I suspect he was delayed in the Tom D incident down at the old hairpin. So Damien Longatano then finishes in 3rd. 4th there is Derry Davis in the Darien, and that will be 2nd in class though, so that's not going to be a particularly good result as far as the points are concerned, because there Gareth John comes home in 5th and does win in Class BS. So John will now take solo ownership of the championship lead, and we'll see whether or not that remains the case in race 2 later on. You'd imagine it probably will. The Ginetta G40 of Chris Everall is going to be tough to beat for Derry Davis into that second race. Now there is previous pace. So everybody now has seen the checkered flag then. It is going to be Jason Davis that wins the race overall in the Ford Sierra Cosworth Turbo. Chris Everall second in the Ginetta G55. Third place Damien Longatano. And fourth position number 5 Derry Davis. Fifth position for Gareth John in the Ginetta G40. Sixth was Todd Garner's Renault Clio. Seventh was number 78. That was Lynn Morgan's Westfield. Eighth position for number 51 David Jones in the Ford Focus. Then it was the Mini of Richard Jessup and the Peugeot 205 of Mark Williams to round out the top 10. Pretty much everyone gets a class win as well, it seems. You've got Class CS, which is won by Davis, Class D by Everall, Class BS by John, the Invitational Class by Jones in the Focus, and then you've got Class BT, which is won by Williams in the Peugeot 205, and then in Class AT, which was the sort of Ford KA class, that private little battle went the way, in the end, by 18.3 seconds, of the number 13 of Alan Smith. So that's our first Welsh Sports and Saloon Car Championship race. They'll have another 15-minute race later on today, just the one-day format for this championship then, not racing with us yesterday.